Hello and welcome to today's webinar. A little housekeeping before we begin. Everyone is muted during the webinar. All webinars will be recorded and sent out to all the attendees after the webinar has concluded. Tomorrow, the webinar will be sent to all participants. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to ask questions during the webinar by clicking on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Once the presentation concludes, I will ask the questions presented in the Q&A box. I may not get to everyone's questions, but we will do our best. With that being said, I would like to introduce you to Ruben Franco, President and CEO of the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, everybody. This is Ruben Franco, President and CEO of the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to Comerica and David Bentoncourt from Comerica for setting this up. We've been around as a chamber for over 35 years. And we're also a host of the Orange County Hispanic SBDC, where we can provide individual services, consulting to our members and to the community at large. I am pleased right now to present Senior Vice President of External Affairs and Community Development for Comerica, Mr. Larry Reed.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm happy and proud to be in partnership with the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation and the OCIE SBDC to provide this valuable content to the businesses adversely impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. And we're actually fortunate enough to have joining us on the call today our market president for the state of California, Mr. Morgan Rector, who is going to ask a few words. Morgan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks, Larry. So we are, this year has been incredibly challenging in a whole variety of ways for all of us, from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. I think there's a lot of inward focus and a lot of self-questioning, both in terms of, I think, who we are, both as an organization and our colleagues. And I think Comerica has always been a very forward-looking, forward-thinking organization. I think now more than ever, it's like that's what's needed from our financial institutions as part of the communities that we service. And I think looking at ways that we can get out of kind of the normal things that we're doing every day, which is obviously we're out there kind of looking at our client base and focusing on bringing in new clients into the bank. But beyond that, into how can we be more of a partner, a participant, a valuable member in the communities that we serve. And that this has certainly been one of the things that's come out of this. And I'm sort of one of those type of people that look for any time that you're faced with a challenge of trying to find ways to look at positive things that may come out of it. And I think that's what we've all been doing here. So we're really happy to be partnered with this group, and looking forward to just listening, learning, and providing whatever help that we can, and giving access to the resources that we have and the expertise and experience that we have. So that's all I have to add for to kick it off here. So I'm not sure whether I'm sending it back to you, Larry, or where it's going, but really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this.
Thank you, Morgan. We're going to hand it back to Ruben and let he and his team dive right in and provide the content. So again, thank you all for joining the call, and we wish you all the best of luck as we all move forward in recovery.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, David. Thank you, Morgan. And thank you for the partnership with Comerica. We truly appreciate it. And please, the people who are on the call today, next week on the 25th, we'll have a second round of call, and that part of the boot camp will be discussing alternative financing methods as you go forward, a recovery out of the pandemic. Our third round in the series of the boot camp will be on July 2nd, and that will be covering marking your way to recovery. How do I market my company coming out of this pandemic? So it is my pleasure now to introduce our lead finance consultant for our Small Business Development Center, Mr. Craig Russum, who will be going over EIDL, PPP, and PPP forgiveness. Craig, please take over.
Thank you, Ruben. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on here today. I'm going to share my screen and let's just dive into it. There is so much information out there right now, truly unprecedented times, with regard to everything that's going on, and especially from the lending aspect and what loan programs and stuff that are available to us out there. Changes, it's seemingly, by the hour and everything. So trying to stay up to date on the information, it's just been really important, I know, for everybody. So today I'm going to share a little bit about what's going on out there, what changes have just been implemented here, what to expect, some timing aspects of things, and ultimately, what's available to you out there with regard to the PPP and the EIDL. So a couple of things. What I'm sharing on my screen right now is a Dropbox that we have available to all of our clients and folks that attend our webinars. It's just chock full of all kinds of different calculators and past webinars, information about resources, the forgiveness portion of the PPP, okay? The EIDL denial webinar was a webinar we did, I believe about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, that had a lot of information for you folks that might have gotten denied by the EIDL and what that process looks like and how to go through that as well. So all kinds of different information. I'll be sure to share this link into the chat window so that you can have access to this information as well. Okay, so included in there is information about the EIDL, PPP as well, and also some calculators and the latest in the applications and the forgiveness application. So where do I start my day? Well, it's with the SBA.gov website. That's where, as far as the most up-to-date, useful, as far as what I know is being published and not just hearsay. There are a lot of whispers and things that go on around the background and stuff, and I really try and stick to the facts, stick to what the SBA is publishing. And this is where I find that information. So the SBA.gov website, and again, I should be able to drop this link in the chat here. So give me one moment, because every day that I that I get in here, so if I can click and see exactly what's happening. And so I'm not sure about the audience here exactly who has PPP or access to EIDL or both, or been denied and stuff. So I'll go through some of this information. But when I say unprecedented times with these loan programs, it truly is. If you look at the statistics, this is for the PPP program or the Paycheck Protection Program. So as of date, we have over 4.6 million loans approved, $513 billion worth of approved dollars here in this program. More importantly for you, if you have not applied yet for PPP, is that you have 12 days in which to still apply for this program. And there's still $100 billion that's available to you. So understand that there is a new application that was published and revised on the 12th. I'd say most of the banks, have updated, if they needed to update their portals, that it's ready to go. And so you can go directly to your bank. Like Comerica has their application up and running to where you can still apply. So if you've been on the fence, or you didn't think it applied for you, or your business wasn't quite ready, you're the beneficiary of some new rules and guidelines that went into effect just on the 5th of June. And so please take advantage of this program. It's with the forgiveness component, it truly is a fantastic way to bring your employees back on and to utilize it as a source of capital with your recovery plan. It is open, sole proprietor, partnership, C Corp, S Corp, right? LLC, independent contractors, right? Nonprofits as well. So it's open to so many different types of businesses that I truly believe that it is a big part of your recovery plan. And the numbers show that as well. And businesses that are doing well, with the PPP funds in hand, been able to work with them directly on their recovery plan and how to then utilize these funds. So it's a fairly short application. You need to provide some documentation and then look at how those funds are to be utilized. So with that, the forgiveness portion of the PPP has obviously been at the forefront of this program because of its unique nature in that a portion of it being forgiven. Just understand about how the funds are to be utilized. So this is the most up-to-date information as far as you may have heard a 75-25% rule or where 75% was to be used for payroll purposes, and 25% to be used for rent and utilities and interest. That has since changed to now a 60-40 split, which I know has been a great change for many of you. Restaurants, hospitality folks, your businesses, you just weren't quite ready to come back online. It was difficult to spend 75% in such a short time period of 8 weeks. So this change to a 60-40 split allows you to allocate, additional funds towards rent, utilities, and other uses like that. But then more importantly, what they've also done with the new PPP, with the Flexibility Act that just went into effect, is that you have an option to take a 24-week time period in which to spend these funds. So truly, we can use this as a source of capital when we're looking at our recovery plan. I no longer am restricted to this 8-week box, this window where I was kind of forcing things along. I was accelerating my recovery plan unnecessarily just to stay within the guidelines of that 8 weeks. Now I can truly look at it from a 24-week perspective from funding date and utilize the funds much differently. Because again, it's still being calculated the same at 2.5 times my average payroll, but now I have 24 weeks in which to spend it. And so it allows me that opportunity to pump the brakes a little bit, truly focus on the recovery plan and how to utilize these funds in the best way manner, to bring my business up to speed and try and hire back as many people as I can, more from a sustainability standpoint, right? From a viability standpoint and how I can use these funds. So those changes have really done wonders for this program and opening it up to how these funds can be used, which businesses can truly take advantage of it. As you're starting to bring people back, as we're seeing more sectors, more industries starting to open up, with 24 weeks is going to give you that time. So there are a number of new forgiveness loan applications that just came out just a couple of days ago. Okay, so it is brand new. They updated it from the Flexibility Act and made these changes. So I recommend that you download them. You can find them on the SBA's website. It's also in our Dropbox as well. But if you come to the PPP page, okay, a wealth of information. And then more importantly, right here, okay, click here to download the Paycheck Protection application. Okay, there's a Spanish version. And then more importantly is that they came out with instructions that go along with the application. So they've done a nice job of trying to explain what this new forgiveness application looks like, how to fill it out. And then they came out with an easy form as well. Okay, this easy form I think is really the big game changer for a lot of folks, because we were getting stuck on FTEs, or the full-time equivalency for your headcounts and your employees and how we are bringing them back. So those of you that have the PPP funds now or had it early on, say in April, we've been working hard with you trying to figure out your headcount, how to bring your employees back. What did they count as, right? Was it a 1? Were they full-time? Was it they worth a half? Are we going to a 10th, right? There was so much going on with us trying to bring employees back and trying to maximize the forgiveness, that sometimes we're doing some things prematurely. Well, with the easy loan forgiveness component here, it's just a matter of satisfying a couple of criteria, which I think many of you are going to. Okay, then we can use the easy form. Okay, I think that the big one for most of us is going to come into where the covered period, where, here, let me get to that right part. It's going to be your FTE Safe Harbor 1. Okay, so they've added a new Safe Harbor. Let me just find it on here. Cash. Okay, here we go. So something new to the forgiveness, the new forgiveness application, is they've added a new Safe Harbor 1. The Safe Harbor 2, if you've been working through the original forgiveness application. This was the number 2 one. This was the original. What they've added now is the Safe Harbor 1, because we know how much trouble FTVs have been. So what this tells us is that you can be exempt from the FTE requirement if you meet this. Okay, and what does it say, right? If you're able to document that your business was unable to operate between February 15th, 2020 and the end of the covered period at the same level of business activity as before February 15th, due to compliance with requirements, established guidance, right, issued between March 1st and December 31st from a variety of different services, from Health and Services, Director of Center of Disease Control, right? Everything that we're being told about our business. We had to mandatory shutdown, operate at 50%, reduced capacity, right? Your business was deemed non-essential. Okay, all those things would fall under this Safe Harbor 1. And if that's the case, now we can take FTEs off the table. And now we can truly focus on how to spend the money, best to bring back our employees and as a part of a recovery plan. So this is paramount for folks to understand this, because I think it's going to really open up how we can use the PPP funds, right? And as business consultants, we can get back to what we want to do, which is look at your plan. We want to look at your recovery plan. We want to look at your business itself, not just how to maximize forgiveness. And so the Safe Harbor 1, I think, does a tremendous job to allow many businesses to now look past the whole FTE requirement and just look at how to spend the money on payroll, rent, utilities. Okay, so this is going to be a big one. Because if you can do that, then you can qualify and use the fast track, the easy loan application, which this is it. Okay, it no longer looks like a 15-page tax document that you need to fill out. It simplifies it greatly. Okay, as we apply for forgiveness for the PPP. Now, you're still going to need documentation. You're still going to need 940, 941s if you have it. Any sort of payroll support documentation. I still recommend segregating the accounts. I think it's cleaner from an accounting standpoint. That allows you truly to earmark that money, apply for forgiveness, and ultimately close that account down, right? Stick it in a box. You have to hold the documents for 6 years. So all those things versus putting it in with your general funds. Now, there's nothing that says you can't, sure, put it in with your general funds. Just understand that there is accountability that you have to be responsible. There's admin, there's work on your part as far as how that money is to be utilized and earmarked and then ultimately proven. The onus is on you, the borrower, to provide the documentation to apply for forgiveness. Okay, so just try and make it easy on yourself and how you're allocating those funds and then ultimately how you're going to apply for forgiveness. So I don't know if Comerica has any update on when those forgiveness portals will start to open up. I'd imagine all the banks are working through the new forgiveness application. They have updates to make. They got to prepare themselves for folks to start applying for forgiveness. With the new forgiveness application, you can choose your original 8-week covered period, okay? Or you can choose the new 24-month or December 31st, whichever comes first. So, those folks that are spending PPP funds now, and you can stay on track, and keep doing what you're doing. I'd imagine we're just going to be waiting on the banks a little bit so that they can get their portals together and start, so that you can start applying for forgiveness. Okay, so print out the new documents, read through them first. I recommend you just kind of run through it, start playing with the numbers, and see how things are going for you on the PPP and the forgiveness. Okay, so, but exciting news here with the new forgiveness calculators and worksheets coming out. I think it's going to help a lot of folks, and we have 12 days left. So if you haven't applied, please do. So I think it's going to be great and be an integral part to your recovery plan. So let's move on to the EIDL. As of Monday, the EIDL application came back online for those businesses that are outside of the agricultural businesses. For a little while there, it was restricted to that business type. So, but as on Monday, they opened it back up. The idle is directly from the SBA, covid19relief.sba.gov. Okay, so you need to go here directly. This is not from a 7A lender. This is directly from the SBA. So again, if you were shut out for some reason on that first round of applications eligibility through the SBA, just know the portal did come back online for you folks outside of agriculture. 15-minute process. It's a very simple application. They're asking for 3 numbers regarding your business, number of employees, 12 months of gross revenue pre-COVID, which for the idle, the COVID date is 1/31/2020. Okay, so they're looking 12 months prior, and then 12 months cost of goods. That cost of goods number has caused some trouble for folks. My recommendation is to review your tax returns, talk to your CPA about what would be considered your cost of goods before you just put a number in that field. Because like I said, especially service industries have had some trouble with understanding what their cost of service might be or what they might put in that line item. So just take a look at that before you start filling all this information out. But the idle is more open as far as its usage. It's best for sales, general, and administrative type costs. Okay, it's that shortfall. It's not meant to replace your profits, but it's meant to help your business, say 6 months worth of runway with all of those fixed operating costs that we have to pay as business owners. It allows you to use the idle funds to keep your business operational and as part of your recovery plan. It is a 30-year term. Okay, 3.75% for the for-profit, 2.75% for the nonprofit. So incredible loan. No points, no fees, no application fee, nothing. Right? First payment's deferred for 12 months. There is no timeline in which you have to spend the idle funds. There is still uncertainty, in my opinion. And so having access to capital, I think, is going to be really important. I know next week, I think we're going to have a talk about, other ways, other access to capital that's coming out there, because I think it's really important. It's important to have cash. It's important to be in a position to where we could weather if we have this second bump. Q1 for me next year is really important because you guys were coming off of some outstanding, 2019's Q1 this year. You were ramping up, you were hiring people, you were in business, right? And then COVID hits middle of March. Okay, so it's going to be important to see how our recovery is going. And in my opinion, having access to some capital to sit on Q3, Q4, I think is going to be really important. I think that's where the idle funds can come in to help. Because again, there's no timeline in which to spend it. You can sit on it for a little bit. You can use it for more general purposes. You can use it for accounts payable. If you need to pay some vendors, right? Taxes, business taxes, right? Business credit cards. It's not meant to refinance your debt, so be careful there. You have to be more strategic in how you use the idle funds, and that it's used to help with your cash flow, not to refinance your debt. But it can be used for that purpose, right? You can pay your credit lines, your monthly obligations on those things, business credit cards. You can even do tenant improvements. Excuse me, where the line is drawn is using the funds to expand your business, okay? You don't want to do that. And also understand that the idle funds are going to need to earmark as well, like the PPP, and understand that if the SBA comes looking, that you need to be able to explain how you were utilizing those funds. Okay, so idle portal is up and running. So please take advantage of that if you haven't already. I know some of you have been in the queue for months, going on almost 2.5 months, right? So be patient. They are still processing applications. Do not fill out a new application. Okay, it's just going to slow it down. And if you have received a denial letter, okay, you can email me directly, email the SBDC. We can help you through that process. We have a whole idle denial webinar page here about the different reasons you might have been denied, what that recovery process looks like, the reconsideration period. Okay, you have 6 months. There's a whole team waiting for you, excuse me, to help you through this process. And that's about it, Ruben. I don't know if we have some questions or you want me to dive deeper into some things. I can do that as well.
Yeah, Edna, do we have some questions for Craig?
Anything specific that folks are coming up against? Or I know the new forgiveness piece, it is brand new, 2 days old. We're working through it to try and understand it. We're pushing on it, testing it. So I hope to have more information about the new forgiveness calculations. But for now, print out those worksheets, start playing with the numbers, and see what's going to make sense for you. I think they've definitely simplified the process. That's for sure.
Yeah, and to Craig's point, we have one-on-one consulting available if you do need help with any of this. So you can always call our 800 number at 1-800-616-7232. Is that correct, Craig?
Yeah, I got a couple different things. 7232. You can email us here as well. If you have any questions, we have consultants that are ready. And, more importantly for me, and what I'm trying to do now is look at it more from a business consultation standpoint, especially with the rule changes with the PPP. It allows us now to really get to the plan. And so we can help you with that process as well. Let's look at, what does 3 months look like? What's the next 6 months look like? So that we can get a handle on your business and understand it from a recovery standpoint, and just use the PPP, EIDL, and other sources of capital so that we know what your runway looks like, and do our best to try and plan and recover and thrive. There's folks that been successful in doing that. So whatever we can do to help you with that process. But yeah, that's our contact information.
Yeah, Craig, you have a question here on EIDL. Are EIDL funds distributed all in one lump sum or a draw?
So when you go through the process, eventually you're going to get invited to the loan portal piece, and there's going to be a slider there. Okay, and it's going to give you a loan amount between whatever you're qualified for, 1,000 to whatever, 100,000. Okay, and you get to choose what loan amount that you'd like to have deposited into your bank account. So at that point, you do have a little bit of flexibility to choose whether you choose the maximum amount that they may be indicating that you're qualifying for, or you choose a lesser amount. That's up to you. Understand on the EIDL, there is a collateralization requirement for loans over $25,000. Now, up to $150,000, what we're seeing is that it is a very general yet all-encompassing collateralization statement that you have to agree to. So on my screen now, here's some sample loan docs for the EIDL. So loan amounts over $25,000. This is it. This is the collateralization statement. That there's no second round to which the SBA comes back and has you actually sign a particular piece, that you're collateralizing. So when you read through this, it's incredibly vague yet all-encompassing all at the same time. So I know it's scaring a lot of folks. Just understand that this will come into play if you default on the loan. There is 12 months of deferment. Interest does accrue from the day it's deposited. So you have time to turn your business around, but 13 months out, they are going to expect payments on this loan. There's no forgivable portion to the EIDL. So in your case, the funds would be deposited to your account to whatever amount that you indicated, that up to where you were approved for. There is a timeline, though, up to 2 years into which you can ask for additional funds. Okay, so you, as of right now, they don't have the service folks in place yet to handle this request. But normally what happens is that you will talk to your service advisor there at the SBA requesting additional funds. They will ask you to show why. So whether you use some projections or use of funds, you'll have to indicate how you spent that first round of EIDL funds if you have. So providing documentation, invoices, however the first round of idle funds were spent, and then I'm asking for $25,000 more. Here's why. Here's why I need additional funding. Now remember, I mean, this is all predicated on the fact that your business was affected by COVID. So it's not to be used for expansion efforts. So hopefully, you know, your business is recovered and you're able to sustain itself and you won't need additional funding. But what happens if we get a second BIP here, right? A second little bump and we have to, you know, I've heard, unfortunately, some restaurants had to close, right? Just recently because they had cases of COVID. And so now they're shutting their doors again. So having access to capital, this with the EIDLE program, and this allows you to go back and ask for additional funds later. So to answer your question, it's not a draw, sort of say, and that it will be a lump sum deposit, but there is a process in which you can ask for additional funding if needed.
And Craig, how are the PPP funds dispersed?
So again, you'll be at the loan amount. It's based on 2.5 times your 2019, pretty much. You know, there's some changes there. You can pick some different time periods, but typically it's 2.5 times your 12-month payroll average, and it's dispersed lump sum to your account. And then it's just key on the PPP and how you show how it's being spent. You just have to document it. You need to be able to show that you're using the PPP funds and all the buckets that it's eligible for. So payroll, rent, utilities. Okay, those are the big bucket items. Interest on the mortgage if you have it. Interest on other debt too. Key being 60% needs to be paid on for the payroll purposes in order to maximize the forgiveness amount. So just understand, you can have both. You can have the PPP and EIDLE. You just have to keep them separate as far as how they're using the SBA, because they're both SBA programs. They don't want the duplication of benefit. So if you're using PPP funds for payroll, they don't want you to use EIDLE funds for payroll while you're inside the PPP period. Okay, so that's key, and that because there's no time period on the EIDLE in which to spend it, you could use PPP funds for your payroll purposes, apply for forgiveness, right? Get through that whole PPP program, and then use your EIDLE for rent, payroll, utilities, and other things, okay? So you just have to understand the timing of it. And the SBA doesn't want you to use 2 different programs for the same purpose. So, although, you know, there's no fees that are associated with these 2 programs, understand there is some accounting that goes on. There's things that you need to do to earmark and to show how these funds are being spent and to keep them separate, and especially in the PPP when you're applying for forgiveness, to be able to have the support documentation and how those funds were spent. Otherwise, you're looking at a loan, okay? So a portion of it could be unforgiven. For those of you before June 5th, okay, the key date, June 5th, your loan is still a 2-year 1% note, okay? That's really important to understand, because at this time, only folks who have applications dated after the 5th will have a 5-year term. So I know you might have heard PPP, the term has changed to a 5-year term. Well, that's only true for those folks outside of June 5th. Now there will be a process. I don't know if Comerica can adhere to the, or I mean, attest to this or talk about this, about what that process is going to look like for borrowers to request a longer term. I don't know if banks are just going to, group everybody into that, or if they're just going to field individual requests. I don't know. I haven't heard how the banks are going to handle that part of it for you folks who had applications prior to June 5th. But just note, if it's unforgiven, you're looking at a 2-year term. And so it's a short window and may affect your cash flow.
Well, that's good information on that. Obviously, does anybody kind of know offhand from a bank perspective?
I think everybody's still trying to figure it out. It's quite honest. Yeah. Some of this stuff is so new. Just signed into act, and some of it was retroactive, other that 5-year amortization was not. That was the one piece that was not. Everything else that was changed as far as 24 weeks, that part is retroactive to everybody. 60-40 split, retroactive to everybody. Okay. The new deferral period, the deferment period, is retroactive to everybody. So this is an interesting one. You're looking 10 months after your forgiveness period. So that's big. Okay. That pushes us deeper into, you know, almost pretty much next year for most folks, as far as when their first payment may be on a forgiveness portion.
Yeah, it's interesting why I'm not sure why they didn't just extend that as well to 5 years instead of 2 years. But.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, right. I don't know what that conversation was like, but for some reason they didn't want to make that amendment to every loan doc or something. But I mean, they have to amend the documents anyway. I'm not sure, but ultimately, it's going to come from the banks. You know, as they state it now, it has to be a mutual agreement between borrower and the lender. So. Whether it's just a request or if every request is going to be granted, I don't know. Have yet to see that from the bank.
Okay. Sounds good. Any last words of advice for people, Craig?
Well, I'd say quickly, you know, because I just happened to see this come up on my screen. The idle advance, you know, it's unfortunately, the idle advance and the PPP still do not play nice together. Okay, they're just, for whatever reason, we're still seeing it even on the new forgiveness applications. In that, if you have an idle advance, so the idle advance was based on the number of employees you indicated on your idle application up to $10,000. So you were getting $1,000 per employee. That portion needs to be subtracted from your loan forgiveness amount that you're indicating on your PPP forgiveness application. So unfortunately, if you had access to PPP funds and you're applying for forgiveness, just know that that idle advance is going to turn into a loan. If you do not have access to PPP funds or did not take advantage of that program, that idle advance is considered a grant from the idle perspective. So it's been really interesting talking to the folks who you know, head the idle program, you know, and the other folks on the PPP side. When you start talking loan advance, that idle advance, everybody on the idle side, they're sticking to it, and even says on their website in here that that idle advance is considered a grant, that it does not have to be repaid. Unfortunately, if you have PPP, understand that you may, you know, well, as the application states, you need to subtract that idle advance from the loan forgiveness portion. So just be aware. You know, any last words of advice would be to work on your plan. In the beginning of all of this, we think back to March, and it was so hard to even look, you know, 3 weeks down the road, let alone think, oh my gosh, you know, what's June going to look like? Well, here we are, right? We're in the middle of June. July is coming, August is coming, September, it's coming, whether we want it or not. And so those folks that I see having success are the ones that have put a plan together. They were proactive in putting their projections together. Even with all the uncertainty, I think it's important to start from somewhere. Start from your knowns, start from your expenses, right? And start building your plan out from there. Many of you have, you know, you're working on a skeleton crew, you've reduced expenses as far as you can. Well, that's your starting point. What kind of revenue do I need to generate to at least break even? Now I can start creating sales plans, sales goals. I'm including my team, right? Everybody's part of this process. Other folks that I've seen have success in that they've communicated with their existing team members and found new hidden talents, right? Suddenly you find out that one of your salespeople happens to have a degree in marketing or film or something like that, right? And we need them. We need them for social media. We need them for, you know, different website stuff. So we're utilizing their talents in different ways. So include your team members in this process. Let them know that you're in this together. Formulate a plan, and let's get through this together and let's thrive.
Well, thank you, Craig, for all that valuable information. And thank you to Comerica once again. The consulting that we provide through the SBDC is at no cost, and it's due to organizations like Comerica and the SBA and the GoBiz office of the governor's office that were able to provide that. To Craig's point, please call 1-800-616-7232 if you do need some one-on-one consulting, whether it's the EIDL loan, the PPP loan, or anything that you may need as your business recovers. Thank you, David from Comerica, for putting together this Bootcamp Recovery series. Please join us next Thursday, again at 11, and we'll talk about alternative financing as you go forward, coming out of this pandemic, and join us on July 2nd as well, on marketing efforts that you need to implement for your business going forward out of this recovery. So thank you once again to everybody on the call. Thank you to Comerica, and everybody be safe and healthy out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.